I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. Too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Boy, all that like Kenny. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like.
All right, welcome to Breaking Bet, the second episode. Apologies for the absence last week. Had a great weekend in Vegas doing the FSGA, so it really wasn't that, opportunistic for me to go try and do a podcast. But got a great show today, so we're definitely tackling everything college baseball. It's a big slate, week 2. So quick backstory. Last year, I was trying to find out who the pitching matchups were in the regionals, super regionals. Anybody that doesn't really follow college baseball, you would understand sometimes it's really hard to find who's pitching, and that matters when it comes to betting a line. And so I kept kind of looking on Twitter because the team sites really weren't giving out that information, and sometimes beat reporters or fans will have an inside track. It's not exactly like the pros in that regard, so you'll have a little bit more information sometimes. So one guy I kept coming across, who my guest is today, Matt Grissom, I would always find his plays and, I would follow along, and he was always hitting a lot of his winners. I was like, wow, I really like this kid. And, me and him have a good friend in common. So I had to get him on here, got to bring him out. Matt Grissom, welcome to Breaking Bet with me, JohnnyVTV. How you feeling, buddy?
Good, man. Ready for this slate. Thanks for having me on.
So it's funny. We were talking off air briefly before we get into, this weekend's games. Mizzou, we were on opposite sides of Mizzou. I threw in a little parlay for fun to make the Thursday night interesting. Started off a weekend series. And so Mizzou is playing FIU down in South Florida. And Mizzou's the bottom of the SEC, but bottom of the SEC is still one of the better teams in any conference, most likely. And they were big on the money line, so I threw them in a parlay run line with Grand Canyon, who, decided to not score 4 or 5 extra runs like they could have. So you took FIU on the money line, and Mizzou was down 4-2 heading into the top of the 9th. They get a couple guys on base. They make it 4-3, top of the 9th, no outs, man on first and second. One of their batters is up with a 3-0 count, ends up taking 3 strikes out looking. The Mizzou Tigers don't score again. What was your reaction to that? Because I know what mine was.
Relief. You give out a plus 230 game, you don't really plan on it hitting. This was just one of those matchups where Missouri surprisingly came in 2-1 after last week's college baseball showdown. They've got a really good closer in Zach Franklin. Outside of that, I'm not buying into him yet. And I thought plus 230 was too good of a price on Florida International. Florida is always a hotbed of talent, and those schools always get the scraps of what's left over from Florida and Florida State. But, it sometimes luck goes your way. I'm sure we're going to have some bad beats this weekend, but it is what it is, man. You just got to keep rolling.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the talent pool in Florida, but especially South Florida, is so big. People don't realize. So these teams, or if you're a player that's not getting picked up by the Gators or the Seminoles or Miami or one of these teams, there's still a lot of talent that goes to these smaller schools. So it's definitely not unbelievable. I feel like, and I don't know what your opinion on this is, early in the year especially is when a lot of upsets could happen, because some of these top programs, these top players, guys aren't in game shape yet. They're not in the flow of midseason, and it's a lot of room for error. So taking a team like, FIU at plus 230 against a Mizzou team that's not necessarily a lock in any stretch of the imagination is not a bad proposition. I don't know if you followed me last week. I gave out Grand Canyon plus 295 against the Vols. I thought
I was on them too.
Yeah, I just think, considering how good Grand Canyon is, that's too big of a line, especially considering the fact that Tennessee is going through a lot of growing pains with their offense. So even if their stud starting pitchers go 6 innings, give up 2 runs, Grand Canyon's got the pitchers to hang in that game. So when the bullpen comes in is where they can kind of get the edge and take advantage. So, it's definitely a plus money winners season right now in the first month, 5 weeks before conference play starts. So
And coaches are still trying to figure out a rotation that works. So you may not get the same consistent starters after Friday. So that's where I try to make some money.
You got a fan here. FIU is such a banger. It was, man. You had that one right. I was wrong about that. I was really upset too. But you know what? It didn't matter because Grand Canyon didn't cover the run line. For anybody that watched that game, it ended up 1-0 Grand Canyon. The pitching was insane. The pitching was lights out. It was Isaiah Coupette from Ohio State who showed out. And then Zach Thornton, who's the number 3 guy for Grand Canyon. Like, they kept walking guys, putting them on base, and ended up getting out of jams. Grand Canyon ran themselves into outs. They probably could have had 4 or 5 runs, but it was a wild game. So
I was grateful that under 11.5 came in too.
You got to sweat that one, right? A 1-0.
3-0 day yesterday.
Yeah, dude. Anytime you get that, that's a big day to start it off. So before we get into this week, quick recap of maybe last week. What was your big winners? Did you have a heartbreaking loser? What was going on for you in week 1 of college baseball?
That TCU game sticks out to me Sunday.
Sunday? Me too.
Man, like I said, I'm not buying into this Missouri team. I don't think they're very good. They're predicted to finish last in the SEC for a reason. And then I get on the plane right when the game starts, and our Wi-Fi is down, of course, on Southwest. I get home and watch it the whole drive home from the airport. And I'm like, all right, TCU, come on, get them bats going. You're going to come back. And then they tied it up, going to extra innings. And Zach Franklin, I mean, hats off to him. He pitched a hell of a game. But so you don't win them all. But that would have been that. I think that would have made me 5-1 on the day. Plus, I had TCU in a parlay. So it is what it is. It's college baseball.
So I second that because that was a real heartbreaker. So anybody didn't watch the game Sunday, TCU was rolling. They put it on Vanderbilt in the first game, which was the first play of the season that I gave out. I also had TCU. I think I may have had TCU on Saturday. I have to go through the records here, but Sunday, which if TCU didn't blow the game, it would have only been a 1-loss week for me. I would have been 10-1 on the week for the opening week. So they were up 6-3 against Mizzou going into the 7th inning, I believe. And TCU blew the lead, right? Which I had the money line. I had them in a parlay, and I took the run line after I was doing really well. After Florida hit the run line -4.5 against Charleston, so I was like, TCU is going to put it on Mizzou because Mizzou offensively is not going to keep up with the Frogs. So
that's what we all thought.
We all thought that, right? So they obviously are in jeopardy of blowing the run line, but at the money line especially. So they blow that 6-3 lead, and then I wake up to find out TCU scores 8 runs and still loses. I had a big parlay that TCU I thought was one of my most certain parts of the bet, and it was a real heartbreaker. But I guess the big winner for me, I would have to say, is I guess getting, Wake Forest, the run line against Illinois, and obviously Tennessee, Grand Canyon over Tennessee was probably the biggest win for me of the week. But overall, it was good. Just that TCU heartbreaker. Mizzou's broken my heart twice in the last week.
I may have a beat worse than that, though. Cal State Fullerton, I just went back and looked. I gave them out at +205. If you remember this game, Stanford, they were this was Sunday. Stanford had 7 runs in the 9th. Cal State hit 2. They went into extra innings. Cal State led the entire game. Cal State ended up losing 21-13 in what was a 8-run inning in the 10th by Stanford. So, I mean, pitching, I guess you can call it that. Stanford's probably better, but, to lead the entire game and to give it up like that. I mean, Platon 15 runs between the 9th and 10th inning.
That's tough. That's different. I mean, but Cal State Fullerton, big dog, and I was watching a lot of that series, and I'm not impressed by Stanford, and I'm not just saying it because it's early. I had a lot of questions about that coming in. I compare them to the Dodgers. They're a wagon, right? They're going to be there. They're going to win their 40+ games. They're going to be there in the postseason every year, but they don't deliver. And I think this year the biggest problem, they're pitching. They lost Alex Williams from last year, their ace. Drew Dowd, I'm not really sold by him. He's maybe a Saturday guy at best. Their best pitcher, Quinn Matthews, isn't a true starter. And I think they have a lot of holes, despite the fact that they're going to have some first rounders. They got Tommy Troy, they got Drew Bowser, they got Carter Graham as well. They lost Brock Jones last year. But this is still a team that, like, because of their pitching flaws, it really gets me worried. And I think they're going to be a target to lose some of these big upsets this year. They're going to be on the wrong side of being a minus 300, minus 330 favorite a lot of times than they were last season.
Yeah. I mean, I still think they're probably the best team in the Pac-12. Not sure how much that's talking about the Pac-12 as much as the talent level, but you know, Stanford's always there. They've been to Omaha 2 straight years, trying to make it 3. They've always got the talent.
I was looking for UConn to upset them. I had UConn beating them last year in the Supers, and they couldn't take advantage in the first inning. We've seen that so many times where if you don't take advantage in the first inning, like, and you leave ducks on the pond, it almost always comes back to bite you in college baseball. It's weird.
Trust me, I'm an Arkansas Razorback fan. We leave runners in scoring position all the time.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You were like the Seattle Mariners with that last year. Okay, Matt. So a couple more things before we touch on this weekend's games, today's games. What's your landscape here for the futures market in college baseball? Now, it's bizarre because these big books, which not many of them put out futures, like in terms of anything other than just winning the national championship. Your site, Oaklawn Sports in Arkansas, is where I've seen to like win conferences, to make the College World Series. Is there a list of favorite college futures that you have?
So I posted my preseason betting guide. That kind of started on a whim last year. I'd been wanting to find a resource for college baseball where you can contextualize thoughts. I listened to 11.7, Ben Upton, Dimitri. They're great. Kendall Rogers with D1, what he's done for the sport is amazing, but it's just scattered. And it's like trying to find pitching rotations. You just can't. There's not enough information out there. And so any information that I felt like I could provide to help bettors, that's what I wanted to do. So in that, I did post a couple of futures, and hats off to Oaklawn and Saracen in Arkansas. Never in my life would I've dreamt to see the day where the betting market is better in Arkansas than it is in Nevada. I'm going out to Las Vegas this weekend, and I'm looking everywhere for books that have college baseball lines, and there's nothing. I mean,
I was just out there, man. I couldn't find them.
This is crazy, and I can bet them on Oaklawn and Saracen all day long here. But I've got Tennessee to win the SEC. I think, LSU is a wagon. Paul Skeens, which we'll get into later, he may never lose a game, but Tennessee, they seemed like the team of destiny. Oregon State have an amazing season. You don't win, you come back the next year, you win it all. I felt like Tennessee was this year's team, but as they've shown early, they've lost a lot of firepower. I don't know how they're going to do offensively. But I've got Arkansas to reach the College World Series. Dave Van Horn always has a knack for getting back there. I did bet this before Jackson Wiggins, who was going to be our Friday night guy. Had, tore his UCL. He's out for the year. Stanford to win the Pac-12, Stanford to reach the College World Series. I've also got Wake to win the ACC and to reach the College World Series, TCU to win the Big 12, Maryland to win the Big 10.
That's a pretty good sampler of plays. I'll read a couple of mine off real quick. I got Wake Forest to win the ACC at 4-1. Can't believe they were tied with Louisville. That's a 2-unit play for me. I had high hopes on Wake Forest coming into the year. So real quick story, the week before the Super Bowl, I had a great guest on, Joe Doyle. And, I was eyeing up Arkansas. I was eyeing up the prices. They were 40-1 on DraftKings. And, he comes in, we were discussing, goes, I think Wake Forest is one of the best plays. And not from a betting perspective, just from an overall, who is going to win the College World Series. I think Wake Forest is a really good chance. And I said the same thing. I was like, I can't believe they're 40-1. Within 2 days, they were down to 25-1 on DraftKings. Everywhere else evaporated, 20-1 or less. And I actually got in on them at 25-1 to win it all. I waited a bit too long. And I was upset at myself because I've done that in the past where I haven't jumped on it right away. I got to be honest. Like, I think Wake Forest, I wanted to see a little bit of them before, everything else. I know what kind of roster they had. They had a wagon last year, even though they got upset in the regionals, a little premature exit. But I think this year Wake Forest is going to finish as one of the top 3 teams in college baseball. They might have the best pitcher of the year with Rhett Lauder. They might have the Golden Spikes winner, Dick Hauser Trophy winner in Nick Kurtz. He looks live for a 30-plus Tater season. Oklahoma to win the Big 12. I'm taking a sprinkle on them because I think even though they got gutted by the draft last year after going to the national championship and losing, I think, Skip Johnson knows how to run a program, man. He really does. And he brought in a ton of transfers, and I think they're going to take a little bit of time to gel. I'm not really sold on anybody in the Big 12. Texas has a lot of questions. Texas Tech does. TCU's good, but I need more from their pitching. I know what their offense can do. And, taking TCU at plus 250 right now is not something that I'm looking at. And, of course, Oklahoma State, they're a big question mark for me as well. So grabbing Oklahoma at 7-1 was a good price. Florida to win the SEC, Arkansas to win the SEC. I have 2 bets on them at 650 and 7-1 because I think they're capable of running with the Bulls. And, I think they're capable of beating LSU. And as good as LSU is, like 2-1 is not the price to take it on. And then
Right.
Campbell to make the College World Series, long shot sprinkle quarter unit at 40-1. I think they would have made it last year if they didn't get drawn in Tennessee's region. I think they got the worst possible short end of the stick they could have asked for because they're a monster. And I still think despite losing Harrington and Nito, they have Cade Cooler, who's going to be a first rounder. They have Jared Belbin. They have Drake Pearson. They have some guys. They have a lot of that offense still intact that was top 5 in Taters last year, hit 118 overall. I took a little bit of Mississippi State to win the College World Series quarter unit at 60-1. That price is all over the place. I was high on the Bulldogs because even though they have 26 freshmen, sophomores combined, I think Mississippi State won it all in 21, right? So I think it was going to take time for them to gel, and I was really fond of Durangelo Senchi, who now people know because he's a switch hitter and he's a switch pitcher, which getting down to the dog days, that's a huge advantage of a guy that doesn't really necessarily need regular rest. And I felt like Mississippi State was going to get stronger as they go on. And the last one that I'll give out, aside from UT winning, which was my preseason pick at 8-1, I like Wake Forest at 25-1, like I said. And I'm throwing a little bit of a sprinkle for South Carolina to make the College World Series at 100-1, half unit. I don't think they're the Gamecocks. They're the Rakecocks. Like they look great. Smashing. Yeah. And I think buy in on them now if you're going to buy in.
Yeah, I may have to make a play on them.
I mean, they're putting up
SEC.
They're putting up double-digit runs in 5 straight games. They haven't done that since March of '97. Like they're scoring runs. They have pitching. I didn't think that they would be that good this year. Time will tell because they haven't obviously played SEC play yet, and that's what separates the men from the boys. But certainly one to watch. And so, Matt, one more thing before we get in here: draft stock. Who's moving the needle for you? Like who are you looking out for that's draft eligible this year and next year that you're really fond of coming into this season?
So for starters, like I said earlier, I'm a Razorback fan. So that always, players go Hogs first. But Jared Wegner, who was a transfer from Creighton, who's come in, absolutely has smashed. I'm anxious to see if he gets drafted. Hog fans were let down with Kevin Kopps. I'm sure you remember that name. Mm-hmm. He was so much older, and the draft is all about potential. So I don't really follow the guys coming out. For whatever reason, it's just not exciting to me. The fact that you've got a super talented guy that sits in the minors for 5-6 years before he makes any noise, I just really don't put a lot of focus on that. But I mean, obviously, if the Razorbacks can get a couple of guys to go pro, Casey Martin was great. Still, still down in the minor leagues, trying to make it. But who do you like?
So yeah, Jared Wagner is a name that really sticks out. Transfer. He finally might be, as a senior or a grad student, having his breakout. Also, the Razorbacks, Will McIntyre is a name that's been thrown out. He's kind of like that starter reliever hybrid. He's an important piece for them because if the Razorbacks, especially in a pinch or when they get to the postseason, they need a guy to come in and give them 4 or 5 innings to start. Will McIntyre is that guy. But if a starter's struggling, he gets pulled, and they need McIntyre to come in the 4th inning and go 3 or 4. He can do that. So it's a very important, versatile piece. But outside of the top guys like Dylan Cruz and Chase Dollander and Wyatt Langford and Enrique Bradfield and Skeens and all those guys, the guy that I'm really looking at that I think has to have is going to creep up draft boards even more, who's kind of done so already, is Jacob Wilson from Grand Canyon. He's kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because a lot of people think Jacob Gonzalez, the Ole Miss shortstop, is going to be the top shortstop prospect in this year's class and the guy who's going to come off the board first above the position. I necessarily don't think that. I think Wilson profiles as a better shortstop in the big leagues. There's a lot of mechanical issues with Jacob Gonzalez's swing that I don't like. For instance, he's a lefty, he's got pop, but instead of stepping towards the pitcher, he always steps towards the right fielder, leaving him vulnerable to the outside pitch. And he'll hit home runs because on a slow curve that goes middle in, or fastball middle in, he'll be able to get to that. But at the next level, I just don't know if that's going to work. And I got to be honest, I don't think his fielding is going to translate to being a big league shortstop, but I think Jacob Wilson will. Like 6'3", 185, 190, that leaves room for him to put on 20 pounds at the professional level and become, 6'3", 205, 210, and be a successful shortstop. I'm really looking at him to have a big year and maybe catapult himself into the top 5 because there's a lot of teams that need shortstops. And I think Jacob Wilson's going to be that guy. And then one more would be Cade Cooler, because I think if Cooler of Campbell, who was the Saturday guy last year, now the Friday guy, has a big season, he's going to go from like that late 20s cusp into top 12, top 15 category. He might be maybe the 4th pitcher, 5th pitcher taken off the board if he has a big season because he's got a big arm. The control has been kind of a question mark. So if he can kind of rein that in and lead Campbell and have a big season and be strong down the stretch the way Cade Horton was for Oklahoma last year, I feel like that'll play him into a higher draft pick, which will ultimately make him more money. So those are 2 guys that I'm definitely looking out for that might not be as big of household names to somebody else in the first round.
So I've got a question for you. Why do you think the difference in going from college pitching to the minor leagues, why are guys like Kumar Rocker, Jack Leiter, that were outstanding in college, why is that not translating to the minor league game?
Well, baseball's a weird sport, right? So football, a guy gets drafted, especially a high draft pick, he's going to be on the team most likely. In a lot of cases, these guys are starting right away. But I think baseball's a different game. Like, not everything translates. And the reason I think is twofold. Number one, it's a lot of pressure, and you got big league hitters that are, quite frankly, on a whole nother level. So a lot of the stuff, despite you having a great arsenal, these guys aren't fooled by it. They've seen it before. They faced the best of the best. And I think that's one of the reasons. And also, I think some of these players, the coaches and the scouting and all the organization, they want to kind of ease them along because baseball is a big confidence thing. So if you're a young guy and you get brought up too soon, you get rocked a couple times, that really diminishes your confidence. That's a big thing because we've seen a lot of guys with physical tools and all the physical traits, but they don't get necessarily the yips, but they just can't throw strikes and they have a hard time translating it over. So I think that's why pitching is a lot more difficult. But I think Chase Dollander, I think he's ready to go right now against big league pitchers. I said that all last year. I followed him a lot. I wrote him up a lot in my plays. And I think if he doesn't win 2 Cy Youngs in his career, at least his career was a failure. because I think he should get 3 Cy Youngs. I'm not even – no kidding. I think Chase Dollander, if he doesn't get at least 2 Cy Youngs, his career was a failure. That kid should have at least 3 Cy Youngs when it's all said and done.
What about Paul Skeens? How does his skill set translate?
Skeens so far. So the thing is, obviously, he's got the raw tools, right? He's huge. He's an absolute house. He's got the high 90s heater, the low 100 heater. He's got the hook. But I feel like he'll probably be there. I just want to see him a little bit more in the SEC play. Like they played Western Michigan. I want to see what happens when they start playing Florida, when they start playing South Carolina, when they start playing Arkansas, these big teams. I want to see how he does over the course of a season, because it's a lot easier to go in and dominate at Air Force when you're not playing anybody. Like, don't get me wrong, the kid's got the raw tools, and I think he's going to end up probably being a good MLB starter. But I think, by and large, Chase Dollander is the best prospect we've seen since Steven Strasburg or Garrett Cole. All the hype Strasburg got is what Dollander should get. But, there has not been a collegiate amateur prospect that is this polished in over a decade. And I don't think people realize that. And I think in 5 years, when he's mowing down big league hitters, they're going to be like, wow, this kid's legit. But we're talking about, we're able to see this in real time. So I can't wait till he gets to the big leagues where I can hammer him for Rookie of the Year, for Cy Young. I can't wait for it, because this kid is going to be legit, dude. So good. All right. So now it's time, 25 minutes in. Apologies if anybody's looking to get plays right away. But real quick, #ad. If you want all the Super Bowl player prop predictions that are part of Bet Karma Premium, go to betkarma.com/JohnnyVTV and sign up for NBA, college baseball, and NHL player prop predictions as well. That, of course, comes with college baseball and MLB. So, Mr. Grissom, we have the LSU Tigers. This line has moved a lot against the Kansas State Wildcats. The run line has been 3.5. I've seen it at +115, and then I saw it get bet down to -115. LSU's gotten absolutely steamed like the little engine that could. How would you attack playing the Tigers today against Kansas State? Obviously, knowing that you're not going to bet -325 on the money line.
Yeah, so in my original write-up for the show, I'd put down that I would lay it with LSU up to 300. Now it's gone past that, and so I started to look for a parlay partner. And I saw that you were on Southern Miss also, right, with Tanner Hall. Mm-hmm. And that was another one that I had. Southern Miss, I'd play up to -200. They're at 230. So put them together for, I think it was -115.
So 105 was the price that I got last night. I still think 115 is a fair price, though. I mean, you're getting 2 of the top 5 pitchers in the country. You're getting a daddy wagon in LSU who could put up 15 runs on anybody. Southern Miss, the offense is a little bit questionable, but their pitching is so good that if, the opposition got held to 1 run or less today with Tanner Hall in the pen, it wouldn't be surprising at all.
Yep, I agree. And I don't think Illinois is going to win a game this series. So I would probably just flirt with Southern Miss all weekend. I think they're great. Them and East Carolina, a couple mid-majors that I think are just so solid.
Yeah, so one of the other things I wanted to kind of float by you, how would you approach this total if you were looking at it? Because the 11.5 to me, it's weird when you're betting these teams that have great pitchers, but they can also put up a 20-piece like it's nobody's business. Do you think, for instance, maybe, this is an overplay because LSU is going to put up 10, 11 runs, and then you're going to count on maybe Skeens to give up 1 run against Kansas State. They luck into 1.
I'm on the under 11.5. I think paired with Skeens and them being at Dell Diamond, which is a little bit bigger than all of their home stadiums, I think there may be some jitters of just, playing in a tournament. The only thing I could say that now I may be regretting it, Kansas State announced that they're starting Owen Barema instead of Tyler Rule. Rule was coming off a 1.8 ERA game last weekend. Barema kind of got blasted. I think he had a 15 ERA. So
did they change? Did they change that because it was supposed to be Barema? Did they change that last second?
No, it is Barema that's starting. I thought we may see Tyler Rule, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. I got you.
I don't know what Kansas State's plan is here. I guess they could pitch him versus Sam Houston tomorrow, try to get out of here 2-1. But I lean the under. I think if there's going to be runs scored, it's going to be by LSU.
Put it on then,
I think
Western Michigan.
Yeah, 10-1, 9-1 game would get us home. It would be a sweat, but college baseball always is.
It always is. So what do you think about the run line here? Because like I said, it was plus 115 on DraftKings this morning. I saw it get bet down to minus 115, but if you go on Caesars, you could still get the minus 3.5 at even money, which is not bad. I mean, I generally don't like to lay these big run lines, but I mean, a team like LSU should, in theory, cover this. Like you would think on paper, between Skeens probably going 6 strong, maybe 7, and a good bullpen with maybe some kind of combination with like Ty Floyd and possibly Blake Money, that they're not going to give up more than 2 runs.
Yeah. Well, in LSU's firepower, Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan. I know they lost Tommy Tanks there for a little bit, but hopefully he can get his shoulder figured out. That sucks. That was a blow. But, LSU's offense is too good. I don't think there is a scenario where Kansas State gives up less than 5 runs, and I don't see them scoring more than 1 or 2, especially on Skeens. So, even if it's a 6-2 game, you're covering that run line, and that may be the way I'd play that. But me being on the under 11.5, I'm going to root for no runs. So I would stay away from it from a personal standpoint, but it's better than laying a big money line favorite.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like that's pretty much, you have 3 ways to attack it. You want to take the money line, big money line for LSU, put it in a parlay, the 3.5 at even money at Caesars. I probably wouldn't go to DraftKings and lay the 115, because that, $15, 15 cents, it's kind of a big difference that you're laying money to lay also 3.5 runs. I probably would keep it at Caesars if you can get it at even money. If you want to get a little action, and I think Matt's point was spot on. So let's move on to the next game here, because this is one I have a lot of interest in. Maryland Terps plus 185 at the Ole Miss Rebels minus 230. The run line's 2.5 with a total of 11.5. So for Maryland, we have Jason Savacool, their ace, their Friday guy, who was very good last year. He's coming off an outing where he got shelled, going against Jack Doherty for Ole Miss, because Hunter Elliott now might have to get Tommy John. So they're waiting to see. And, I feel like this is an advantageous play. But first, I want to hear what you think about this one here.
I mean, this was a play based on the number. I thought with Savacool going, I get it, plus 185 against the champs. But they've lost Hunter Elliott. And I don't know if who'd you say is pitching? Jack Doherty?
I think it's Jack Doherty.
Okay.
Who
it's either going to be him or Grayson Saunier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Maryland Terrapins can steal a game, maybe 2 in this series. So whether it be Savacool tonight or Nick Dean tomorrow, I'm probably going to be on Maryland at least today and tomorrow.
So I think, again, we're in agreement here, because that's probably my favorite upset of the day. One of my buddies was texting me like, all right, who do you like today? And I was like, I got to be honest, dude. I think Maryland's going to pull it out money line outright. Savacool got rocked in the first game. So like a pitcher of his caliber, I don't think that happens twice in a row. And like Ole Miss, obviously the defending champions, and they still have a solid offense despite losing some guys. But Maryland's got some boppers too. Matt Shaw is probably going to be a first rounder. He's probably a top 3 shortstop in the class. That's a guy who hit over 20 home runs last year. He's got 25 home run potential. So I really do like Maryland at the price at 185. I locked it in on Oakland earlier today at plus 205. But just to keep it uniform, I did all these lines as DraftKings, just because Bet Karma is sponsored by DraftKings. So I locked in 205 on Oakland today. That actually saw some steam and came down. It's down to 175 there. So whether you're getting Maryland at 160, 185, 205, whatever the price is, I think Maryland steals this one. They're going to be able to put up some runs here. I kind of feel like this is going to be a higher scoring game. I think The total here is in play at 11.5. It wouldn't surprise me to see this end as like maybe a 7-5 kind of game, 8-5, something along those lines. I feel like Savacool still has some stuff to work out, and Ole Miss will probably put up 4 or 5 runs, and Maryland should be able to get to Jack Doherty, who is their Sunday guy at absolute best. So I feel like Maryland is the play here. So I like that we're in agreement on this one.
Yeah, I may have to join you on that over. I like that. I mean, I think the path for Maryland to win is probably to keep Ole Miss scoreless as long as Savacool's out there. But I think late Ole Miss is going to get their runs. So I like that.
I think honestly, my path here, I feel like if Maryland doesn't score at least 4 runs through the first 5 or 6 innings, I don't know if they're going to win, because Ole Miss to me definitely has the edge in the bullpen. Maryland, yeah. I watched their pitching last week, very shaky against USF. So I was on the USF or the Maryland plus 110 on Sunday upset against USF, which like the fact that they're underdogs at USF, a major team that's ranked inside the top 25 is an underdog to USF, like says a lot. So I think their bullpen is a little bit shaky. That's why Savacool's got to shut it down. And, you know, Ole Miss can bring in a guy like Josh Mallitz, who's got big-time stuff. And so that's why I think Maryland's got to put on the scoring early. They cannot leave runners out there. They got to get everybody in. They got to score at least 4 runs within the first 5 or 6 innings to have a good chance to win.
Yep. And let me just say, don't lay heavy money line favorites. Last weekend, I had a buddy text me, and he was like, "What do you think about Tennessee after they dropped game 1?" And he said they're minus 500 versus Grand Canyon. They're 100% going to win, right? And I said, man, I'm on Grand Canyon. I wouldn't lay minus 500 with anybody. I don't care if it's the Yankees. But he did, lost it. And then the other night, Vanderbilt versus UCA, I think it was minus 600. Vanderbilt was
he didn't do it
again.
Did he? Did he do
it again? Did it again. It's the juice is not worth the squeeze, man.
Wait, did he bet a midweek game?
Don't do it.
Did he bet a
Vanderbilt? Yeah. Vanderbilt
okay.
minus 600 versus UCA.
That's okay. I just want everybody to know betting a midweek game is the dumbest thing in history. So in my career, I've come to the conclusion, like for the MLB, I do not bet Sunday games. I have to really, really love something in order to bet or give out a play on a Sunday in the MLB. The same principle applies for midweek college baseball. And when I say midweek, it's like Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursdays, if it's the first game of the weekend series, that is fine. But a Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, even on a Monday, the 4th game of a series, that too, no. But you don't do that. That's bad. That's bad because it's not the same pitchers. The offense isn't really, they're not locked in like they are for a mid-weekend series. So that's why I really do not like.
Well, a lot of times they're playing with the offense anyways, getting guys playing time that aren't going to start a weekend series. You never know who's going to be catching, who's going to be, playing the outfield. It's just a whole different – I equate it to preseason NFL. Like, you don't know how long these guys are going to go. There's no point in laying it. I mean, you wouldn't lay minus 600 on the Kansas City Chiefs in a preseason game. Don't do it in college baseball on a midweek game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100%. So I'm glad we're in agreement there. The official play for me that I'm putting out is Maryland money line plus 205. Like I said, I locked it in early. It's out on my betting sheet. If you guys want to take a look, that's where I house all my stuff, so you're able to see and where what the source comes from. So even 185, that's fine. I think Maryland is good here. And, the run line at 2.5 is solid. I just don't know if I want to lay the 150, but I definitely think they should cover that run line plus 2.5. I feel like that's a good look there. So that's the way I would attack this game. I wouldn't get your hopes up on Ole Miss starting their 3rd best guy against a Maryland team that could plate a lot of runs. All right. Matt, let's move on here. We got the Battle of the Carolinas. We got North Carolina Tar Heels minus 120. They've kind of swung over to the favorite on at least DraftKings. It's a little bit tug of war between other books over East Carolina. It's a flat run line at minus 1.5, typical 10.5 total for a Friday. Where are you going with this one? Do you think the Pirates pull this out or the Tar Heels are going to march on?
I was on the Pirates, but they've postponed that series due to inclement weather.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, they just announced it a little bit ago.
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you said something because honestly, I've been prepping for the show, so I was not able to come across that. That's good to know. So that's probably going to result in maybe a doubleheader tomorrow, and I feel like we'd probably see the same pitching matchup today, which was supposed to be Savage versus Max Carlson. If right, would that make sense?
Yeah, the way I read it, though, it sounds like it's bad weather all weekend and that they were going to reschedule and play in Greenville later in this season. Going back to the tweet.
Yeah, that's not good. So, all right, we're gonna take. I appreciate you telling me that. We're gonna take that play off. So that's one less play. I was on East Carolina money line. I just feel like they're a better team. If you take away Vance Honeycutt from UNC, who is going to be probably the best prospect heading into 2024, who is a player profile comp to Trey Turner, power, speed. They're not very good. Max Carlson's an okay guy. He's most likely a number 2 at best, not a number 1 at this stage, but East Carolina was going to be the play, so appreciate you putting that on there.
I'm on East Carolina's Twitter feed. It says Saturday. Due to inclement weather, Saturday's baseball game is being postponed and will be played in Greenville at a later date. So it looks like they are playing Friday and Sunday.
Are they playing today? Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, the lines are still up.
Okay.
Saturday's game is off, which is curious because they may play with the pitching rotation. Sunday may be a good play because it would essentially be your Saturday game.
So today though is still business as usual then.
Yep, that's the way I read it.
All right, so okay, assuming this game is on today, because like you noted, the line is still up. You're on East Carolina.
If Spivey is pitching, who did you say was going to go?
I think it's Trey Savage. I don't think Carter Spivey's pitching.
Okay. What's the line right now?
Now, let's see. Now it's minus 120 UNC, East Carolina minus 110. I don't know why they don't have Carter Spivey going. Carter Spivey, he dominated. Who was it? Texas last year? I forget who he dominated in the regionals or the super regionals. I don't know
East
why.
Carolina had some guys last year.
They had a wagon. Bryson Worrell is my guy, bro. I love Bryson Worrell.
I've still got to lean East Carolina. I don't think North Carolina is that great. Arkansas beat them last year in the Super Regional. They just looked flat. I know they returned. What's the Vance Honeycutt?
Yeah, Honeycutt.
I mean, outside of him, they're pretty lethargic. Yeah. East Carolina. Yeah, East Carolina.
North Carolina's offense reminds me of Auburn's last year. They're overall kind of flat outside of Sonny D. Exactly. And like Vance Honeycutt is Sonny D. That's the value. Obviously, Vance Honeycutt's a better player than Sonny D is, but like the value to the team is very similar. And like obviously Auburn had good pitching, especially in the back end. They had a stud closer, Blake Burkhalter, I think got drafted to the Braves, but I think that they're very comparable. And I'm looking here. Carter Spivey's actually not listed for this weekend's rotation. I think they said Cliff Godwin, their head coach, said he was a little sore. So if he doesn't pitch or maybe he gets in a little bit of relief, it wouldn't surprise me. But I'm with you again. I think East Carolina, they always find ways to win. They have good pitching. The kid, Trey Savage, is pretty solid. They're going to find a way to put on some runs in this rivalry here. Seeing Max Carlton go maybe like 5 innings, give up 3 or 4 runs wouldn't be surprising. So I think East Carolina, to me, has the advantage. And I kind of like the fact that the book switched UNC as the favorite here. because, somebody like us, guys like us, like we understand how wrong the books are with this sport in the futures market and game by game. I was talking to a buddy of mine who works at a sports book, and he texts me. He loves me. He loves following me and seeing all the stuff that I do put out on college baseball, because he goes, dude, it's so hard to put a price on. So you could take advantage of it. East Carolina to me is the play. I don't really have a look for the over under. And I think, honestly, I wish you were able to do, different bets in college baseball. Like for me, I would take an alternate run line for East Carolina. If I could, I would probably take them -1.5 as opposed to +1.5, which is -175.
Yeah, or a team total. I'd bet the under team total and for North Carolina. But I'm getting so D1 baseball has all 3 games listed as postponed. But I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, let's. I feel like we can handicap this and talk about it as if it's playing today, and then if it's not, then I guess.
Yeah.
Assuming the same guys are playing tomorrow, it could transfer over, most likely, or Sunday, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Okay, next one here. This is one I've been struggling with. This is a 50-50 one for me. You got UCLA as a dog at Vanderbilt today. The run line's a flat -1.5. Total's low. It's one of the lower totals on the board today at 9.5. Seen a couple of those around. Do you think UCLA could pull out an upset, or do you think Vanderbilt's just kind of rolling right now?
I don't like this Vanderbilt team. I wrote up after the college baseball showdown, they've got guys, but not a guy. And, long after the days of Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker being able to shut people down, they give up runs. I mean, UCLA can hit the ball. Vanderbilt is questionable. I do like this over 9.5. It's a low total, and it could be a 3-2 game, but I'm on UCLA and over 9.5 in this one. I thought it was a 50-50 matchup. If one of them was a plus number, I was taking it regardless which side. It ended up being UCLA at +110. And so I hopped on and grabbed it. So
one thing, and I'm probably not going to play anything. UCLA actually just moved to +120. So my thing here is UCLA's pitching Jake Brooks, who had a good opening week. 5 innings, 1 run, 8 punchies. And, I like Vanderbilt's Carter Holton. He's good. He really came on strong down the stretch as a freshman last year and earned the Friday role. They have a couple good relief guys, but outside Enrique Bradfield Jr., they're a little questionable. Maybe Jonathan Vasteen's kind of drawing some eyes here. They got Parks Harbor, I think his name is. I keep mixing up all the guys named Parks and Parker, but
a lot of baseball names out there now.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of like the overplay because I feel like Jake Brooks, he could get hit for a few runs from Vanderbilt at least, and then I feel like Carter Holton, if he gave up a few, it really wouldn't surprise me. Just UCLA's offense, though, in general, could be a little bit, it could be a little bit worrisome because I feel like they're one of those teams, kind of like how they were last year, where they don't necessarily score a ton of runs against good teams. Like, they beat up on Omaha, fine. They beat up on Pepperdine, but like Vanderbilt's a different animal, man. So like, do we think UCLA is really going to score at least 4 or 5 runs against this Vanderbilt pitching with their ace going?
I think they can. And, Enrique Bradfield just hasn't been that great this year. I'm hoping he gets going just for, the potential of his career being on the Golden Spikes watch list. But I don't know. This Vanderbilt team is just not very good. And yeah, UCLA beat up 16-1, 23-0, 8-1. Those were the finals against Omaha. Do I think that they can score 23 runs against Vanderbilt? Absolutely not. Can they score 8 and probably win it? Yes, absolutely.
So I'll slide with you on UCLA money line if that's where you're going. But I do think the total is probably the better play. So I had a thing here last year where I wrote up a lot of times. And listen, it's not 100% proof. Like sometimes it misses, but I'd probably say, going to last year, transferring over from this year. Friday nights and Saturday nights are built for overs. They're built for overs. Sundays are built for unders most of the time. And the reason is, so Fridays, yes, you have the best pitchers, but that's when the offenses are ready to go. And most of the time you're not getting a lot of these big time matchups when it's lockdown ace versus lockdown ace. Saturday, usually you kind of get the same feel, but Sundays, that's when the bullpens are fried. Friday night under, Saturday night under, Sunday over, because the bullpens are fried, if that's what it is.
Yeah, I was about to say, I usually bet at the opposite.
That's what it is.
Sunday's an over day. Saturday, you can, take it or leave it, but Friday's unders. I think I'm only on one over.
We got Maryland
under.
Maryland Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a fair point. I wasn't high on Vanderbilt coming into the year either, and they're one of the top 5, top 6 favorites to win it all this year on pretty much every board, and I just don't think that's correct. I don't know where they're going to get the firepower. They're better than they were. They were better last year than they are this year. And they lost to San Diego, the Toreros. They lost to Oregon State, and I just don't know if I buy them running deep this year. So Vanderbilt's still a good team. They still have a great coach, and I feel like they're going to win their game. So it's hard to try and pick and choose the spots against them. But I think UCLA, like you said, is capable. It's more of a 50-50 play for me. But if you like the over, I think that's probably a solid look there.
And another game, I don't know if it was on your radar, Sam Houston versus Iowa. I blew past this game until I saw the line on it.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa's minus 135. And like you said earlier, I'm not sure what sports books are doing sometimes, but Iowa, I don't know if you paid attention to Iowa. I think they're a Big Ten contender. They had 9 guys throw last week. They had a team ERA of 0.65, gave up 3 runs, had 35 strikeouts. I don't think Sam Houston's going to hit the ball.
What line did you get?
Iowa minus 135 tonight over Sam Houston.
I'm looking at that. I'm going to add that to the card as well, because I caught a little bit. I caught a little bit of Iowa last week, and their pitching was dominating. And I was reading some of the write-ups on them, and Sam Houston's a nobody school. You know what I mean? They're maybe a fun bowl game football school, but I do think Iowa is one of those teams that they could sneak up on you and have a solid season. I just don't know if they're going to go anywhere long term, but they do have some horses, and especially for a minus 135 line, where the fair price most likely is minus 205, minus 210 in this game.
Yeah, I figured they would be at least minus 200, and then when I saw the minus 135, I can't not bet that. So
no, 100%. I didn't see the Sam Houston Iowa line when I was looking at the lines. They've added a couple more games since I started, since I've had the line up here.
I even think it's Iowa's worth a play tomorrow against LSU.
Yeah, man.
If they're plus 2 anything, I would take Iowa.
What is it? The Round Rock Classic, right?
Yeah. So they've got the pitching to keep anybody from scoring runs. I feel like, of course, they haven't faced a Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, but
right.
Iowa I think is pretty underrated at this point.
Yeah, listen, I think Iowa's a good play for today. Let's add it to the card. Then we got a couple more here. So we got the Illinois Alini. They're at Southern Miss. The Golden Eagles minus 230. The run line minus 1.5 at minus 125 with another low total at 9.5. So by now that I put Southern Miss in a money line parlay with LSU. Got Tanner Hall going today. I don't advise laying the minus 230s. I get a little nervous sometimes about a team like Southern Miss, that their pitching is so good, but they have trouble scoring. So that's probably why I'm a little hesitant on the run line at minus 1.5. And you know how it works in baseball. A lot of times, it's not always the best practice to lay a run line as a home team, because you lose out on the bottom of the ninth if you're leading.
Right.
And that that could be big. A lot of times that could decide the factor. An away team gets they're guaranteed at least 9 innings of hitting. So to me, I personally think the Eagles in a money line parlay is the best way to attack this one. But I wanted to touch on it because Tanner Hall was playing or starting. So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I think I just convinced myself to take the under also.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to lay -1.5 on the home team, just play the under. I feel like with the new run rules, especially, you could afford to lay 3.5, 4.5 runs on a heavy favorite. But that short of a run line, if they're thinking it's going to be that close, and you've got Tanner Hall, who to me is one of the best pitchers in the country, there's no way this is going over.
Yeah, I would tend to agree because it's a simple fact. It's like, this is kind of like, right now I equate this to like Tennessee on a Friday night. With at least Tennessee last Friday night. The way their hitting is in a slump right now, until like they get Maui Ahuna back, and they get their boys rolling, it's kind of like Southern Miss. You have a shutdown ace who's probably not going to let up more than 1 or 2 runs, who their team really can't hit. So if that's the case, then like the under's a great look at 9.5. And I think Southern Miss, if you're not going to put them in a money line parlay, the total at the under is definitely a play here. I feel like the book is kind of sharp on this one, getting this at 9.5. I feel like most of the time that they would have this at a 10.5, which is like an absolute steal. Yeah. So we have a question here about LSU. I like it, and I think this is something that's definitely I feel like this is a good one here. Is it possible Iowa might look ahead to that LSU game?
I think if they were facing Paul Skeens, maybe. But if LSU played this smart, they would throw somebody else other than Skeens today against Kansas State, because I think they can handle them. Their toughest competition in this tournament is Iowa. So I don't really think that you're going to have a look ahead when you know who you're playing this weekend. I mean, you've game planned for your rotation for the whole weekend. So it's not really it's not like a look ahead spot like, oh, I've got an easy team this weekend and next week I've got Bama. In baseball, in a little tournament like this, it's very calculated who's going, who hits against lefty, righty, who your bullpen guys are going to be for each team. It's also pre-planned that I don't think Iowa's even in a position to be looking ahead.
Yeah, I think so. Like, Iowa's not like, it's not like I don't know how to say it. It's baseball. It's a little bit different. Like in a series, it's a tournament. I feel like Iowa's probably not looking ahead, if I had to say so. But all right, a couple more here, Matt. We have Florida State, the Seminoles -105 at the TCU Horned Frogs. Barely a favorite. I'm a little surprised at this one. I mean, we got another low total here with Ryan Vanderhey pitching, and we got Jackson Baumeister pitching on this one here today, I believe. So do you think TCU, who has been scoring a ton, is going to pull it out against Florida State?
This is one of those games that I'm probably going to end up staying away from. If anything, I do like the over 9.5. If you can still get it at 9.5. Mm-hmm. I think Florida State's guy, he was a Team USA guy, the pitcher.
Baumeister? Jackson Baumeister.
Yeah, Vanderhey had a decent outing last weekend.
It's Vandy.
But, I mean, but it's Vanderbilt. So I'm low on them. I know Ben Upton with 11.7. He's high on Florida State this year. I don't know. I think Link Jarrett's a great coach, and he'll do great things at Florida State. I'm not sure if the first year is going to be the year they do it. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a tough task going into Fort Worth. I think TCU is going to have they're going to have to show us that they can win a game by pitching, not just hit the ball. But I think against Florida State, we're going to know a lot after this weekend between both of these two teams. If I had to lean one way, I would probably have to take TCU.
Yeah, again, we're simpatico on this one because I think TCU, like we touched on it earlier. Their pitching has a lot of question marks, especially in like the back end. Ryan Vanderhey, if he can kind of repeat what he did against Vandy, go 5 innings, like 1 or 2 runs. TCU, to me, again, even against Jackson Baumeister and the rest of the bullpen, I feel like they could put up 5-6 runs today. Like they're swinging such hot bats. They have so many weapons here. I mean, you're headlined by Braden Taylor and Elijah Nunez. And I just don't know if – I feel like this is a wrong line. I feel like realistically TCU should be like a minus 155, minus 160 favorite because like I think
that's what I was going to say.
They're going off the assumption that, okay, Florida State's 4-0. They really didn't beat anybody of merit. And like, you know, TCU's a collapsed late game away from sweeping the College Baseball Classic. Who'd they beat? They beat Vanderbilt, right? They beat beat OK State. Oh, no, Arkansas, right. They beat Arkansas, and, like, they barely lost to Mizzou on like, some fluky, weird stuff. Like, TCU's a wagon, dude. I don't think Florida State's going to be able to keep up with them.
And they're so fast. I mean, seeing them in person round Globe Life, and with the new pitching clock, they know that with 2 seconds left, if that pitcher's not turning around, they can steal. I mean, they tore us up on Saturday, stealing bases, taking advantage of the pitching clock, which I hate the new rules, but it is what it is. TCU at this point, they are the better team, and to only be a minus 110 at home,
125.
Oh, it's 125 now.
Okay. It's been 125 all morning.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I had my notes minus 110.
Maybe you got a different book.
Anyways, but like you were saying, if TCU was minus like 145, 155, I feel like I would be more confident in betting them than at the shorter number. But again, these bookmakers don't always get it right, and that's what we're trying to dissect right now. Is figure out where they're wrong, where we could be right, make a little bit of money.
I think they're wrong on this one. I think TCU wins. I think they win by a few runs. Like I don't hate, like I know it's contradictory to what I was saying, but like I don't hate taking them at the home run line at minus 1.5 or plus 125. Like it's a good value. I feel like they're going to win by at least 3 runs here. I just don't like. My thing is this: like even though Baumeister was Team USA kind of guy, like he's a strong pitcher. Like the ACC doesn't have many wagons. Like TCU is right now probably a top 10 offense in America. Like I don't think that's unfair to say at all. Maybe even top 7. And Florida State, like they're not going to face too many of those. And their pitching is probably going to look a little bit better than it should because they're going to get a little bit of an easier schedule. So I think TCU has the ability to take advantage and put up a big crooked number on them. And it's just really, where's TCU's pitching going to come into play? Can Vanderhey go 5, maybe 6 innings and keep it to 2 runs or less? And then the bullpen has a shorter duty. Like, I just don't think Florida State doesn't, to me, stand out in any way this year. They're going to, because we saw Link Jarrett, what he did with that Notre Dame team last year. Like, I was really upset they beat Tennessee in the Supers. Like, he's going to build a good program there. They're going to be a team that you're going to have to watch out for over the next, few years. But like you said, I just think we're a year too early from that. I think they're going to have to experience some letdowns. And I feel like Florida State loses today, and they lose by a sizable margin.
I can definitely see that path. If the biggest question mark for me with TCU right now is their pitching. But if they have some consistency in Vanderhey, and so just focusing on this game solely, I think it's TCU or pass.
Yeah, 100%. We have a question here. John, we appreciate you blowing it up today, man, for real. Okay, so he's saying, how do we feel about Miami against Dartmouth this weekend? I haven't seen a line. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a line for Arkansas. I haven't seen a line for Tennessee. I haven't seen a line for Miami. If you have, please feel free to jump in. Overall, I would imagine Miami's another minus 275, minus 300 plus favorite against a Dartmouth, for instance. But overall, how do we feel about Miami this year? Me personally, Matt and John, I'm not high on them. I was really high on them last year. They had good pitching. They had the best closer in the country. They had a few really stud players. And they still have, Yohandy Morales, who's going to be a first rounder. I'm in love with Morales. He's got 5 taters already, or 4 taters, and they got CJ Kafis. But they don't have anybody. Their starting pitching is shady. Like Carson Ligon and Gage Zeal. Like right now, it doesn't do it for me. Andrew Walters, he's still probably the best closer in the country, but they don't have a big offense. Like to me, Miami is probably the Vanderbilt of the ACC, but not as good, if that makes sense.
Yep, I completely agree. I'm big on pitching. If you don't have a good starting rotation, you're probably not going to win very many series. That said, I do see Miami minus 700. Shout out to Saracen in Arkansas. We've got 850 for the Razorbacks. I think they've got every single game posted on here.
Can you send me that link?
Amazing.
DM me that link. I need to just have these. I mean, I feel like Miami 800 is a little out of whack. That's a monster. Like in that case, I'd probably rather just take Dartmouth then.
Yeah, minus 7. Hogs are minus 4.5 on the run line. Miami is minus 3.5.
That's
Dartmouth. I mean, that may be a play. It's so hard. It's so hard to lay big run lines against these small schools.
Florida, I played Florida on Sunday, minus 4.5 against Charleston Southern. Like, even that was a sweat for a while. They were only up 3 runs into like the 7th inning, and I was like, I don't even know if this is going to come home. And it's tough laying those big run lines. In theory, you're like, okay, well, they should win 20-2, but like it just doesn't always work like that. All right, I have one more on Slate, and then if you wanted like touch anything else here, I have a couple other ones. Cincinnati Bearcats, big dogs to the Florida Gators, minus 320. The run line's 2.5. The total is 11. It's probably going to be Brandon Sproat on the mound for Florida. I haven't checked who Cincinnati's guy is going to be, but who do you like in this one here?
I think you've got to take Florida. Those guys are way too good on offense, and I may have to bet them to win the SEC. As much as I don't like Florida, hate rooting for them, it feels dirty. Florida's got a damn good baseball team.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, Wyatt Langford, the guys, they just smash.
I can't give out a minus 320 play, but like, the Cincinnati's a sneaky team here. They're not like, they're not up to the caliber here, but I feel like they're always kind of a sneaky team. So I don't know if I'm laying 2.5 here. I feel like maybe
just find
parlay, but
find somebody to parlay them with.
Yeah, I feel like the total's probably a little bit low here. I'd probably look to maybe go over on this one. I think Florida's going to put up 7 or 8 tonight. You can't slow down this offense, dude. And like I talked about them this past weekend. To me, they probably have the best, most playmakers and deepest roster in the sport next to LSU. And then I think Wake Forest is right there with them. I think Florida, That's why I have Florida. Like, can't believe Florida on Oaklawn is plus 650 to win the SEC. That's outrageous. Florida is very closely talented to LSU.
I got to bet them. I'm doing it right now.
Are you taking you're taking the money line?
No, betting Florida to win the SEC.
Oh yeah, got to do it. You got to do it. Do you have to be in Arkansas to bet that? To bet on that site? Yeah. You do?
Yep. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I might start calling you up and have put some bet ins. Okay, so that kind of does it for those. If there's a couple more, if you had like a couple more minutes, we got West Virginia, Arizona. Arizona's a minus 190 favorite to West Virginia, minus 1.5 on the run line at even money with a total at 10.5. It should be TJ Nichols, who did an unbelievable job against Tennessee in the debut on Friday in the Desert Invitational. Do you think Arizona's going to put it on West Virginia?
I don't know. The Pac-12 seems so down this year. Arizona, who did they just played in a tournament last weekend, didn't they? The Desert Invitational?
Yeah, and they beat Tennessee. Yeah, they beat Tennessee.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what does it mean to beat Tennessee at this point? Is Grand Canyon a national champ? Is Arizona that great? I don't know. I don't really have a lean on this game. I feel like you've got to take, if you're going to bet it, just to bet it. I feel like Arizona is probably the right side. But
Money line?
yeah. I don't. What'd you say it was?
190, little steep, or you take the run line, even money at 1.5.
I would lay 190.
I kind of like
200 is where I'd kind of draw the line.
I kind of like the under here, 10.5 though, because so TJ Nichols was the Saturday guy last year. Garrett Irvin was the Friday guy. Nichols has good stuff, and if Nichols is on point the way he was against Tennessee, West Virginia is not. He goes 6 innings. West Virginia is not putting up probably more than 1 run. And like Arizona's offense, they got beaten up in the draft. They lose Tanner Otremba, but they lose Danny Susak, who I think was 19th overall. He was the second catcher off the board. Now all they have is Chase Davis. And like as good as Chase Davis can be, he's got a lot of potential. He still hasn't fully put it together yet. So I feel like Arizona's definitely got the capability and maybe win this game something like in the sport of like 4-1, 4-2. I feel like the under would probably be my play in there. I don't know if I see a high scoring total on this one.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that one. That's kind of compelling because I was on Georgia Southern last weekend against West Virginia, which they won 2 out of 3, but I don't know. And then they beat Maryland. It's interesting.
That's 8 p.m., 7 p.m. your time. So a couple more here. I want to know what your thoughts. Indiana at Texas. So Indiana is a 235 underdog, plus 2.5 on the run line, 10.5 total. Texas is minus 300 in their opener. Obviously throwing Lucas Gordon. Lucas Gordon's a stud, bro. Lucas Gordon's he's a bona fide Friday guy. It was a luxury last year when Pete Hansen was the Friday guy and Gordon was the Saturday and Tristan Stevens was the Sunday guy. But like, it's not the pitching, it's the hitting. Texas lost Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic, Golden Spikes winner last year. I think they lost Murphy Staley. I think they have Dylan Campbell, who's still pretty good, but overall their hitting is very questionable. And aside from this game, like, what is the direction of the Longhorns?
I'm real down on them this year. It's similar to Vanderbilt. You know, they've got guys, but they don't have a guy. Gordon is, he's probably unbettable against at this point. Yeah. You've got to take Texas or pass, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana can steal a game or two.
That's what I was thinking that. I was kind of thinking if like Indiana maybe steals today or tomorrow because like the same kind of principle applies, man. Like I think Indiana's pitching is a little bit shaky though, but if they could get a good start and, kind of keep this as like a 1-run game through 5-6 innings and then once Gordon's gone and then they could try to take advantage of that bullpen. But I think it's definitely a shady look here with Texas. And then last one is going to be UC Santa Barbara against Oregon. For some reason, Oregon's a minus 145 favorite to UC Santa Barbara, plus 115 on the money line with a 9.5 total. I think Oregon does actually have a good ace. It's slipping my mind at the moment. But UC Santa Barbara is a tournament team. They're always like in the top 25 or around the top 25. Like I feel like especially this early to start putting that as an underdog against a team like Oregon who really hasn't accomplished much lately. Like if it was Oregon State maybe, but I feel like the Gauchos are probably a team that you could nibble on at plus 115 as an underdog.
I wish it was higher, and I'd probably make it an official play. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks with Oregon and just the Pac-12 in general. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse saying that, but the number feels off. I don't know which way. I don't know how good Xavier is. It's a little misleading when you've got Oregon playing at home 4-0 after sweeping a 4-game series with Xavier, and then UC Santa Barbara 2-2 just got shut out against Oregon State 11-0. I don't know what the talent level's like. I mean, I need to see Oregon before I can make a play. Yeah, I wouldn't bet it right now.
That's a fair point. Okay, so like as we're wrapping up here, Matt, what give me your favorite plays, locks, favorite plays and looks of the day.
Parlay LSU and Southern Miss. That's probably my favorite play, and I'm not a big parlay guy. Maryland plus 185. I think that one is a riskier play, but I think it's a really good bet. Iowa, love Iowa Hawkeyes minus 135 versus Sam Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning towards UCLA plus one. I actually got them at plus 118 at Bet
Nice.
Saracen over Vanderbilt.
Maybe a half unit on that.
And then on UCLA, I went full unit.
Full unit.
Yeah. And then I've got Florida State and TCU. I took the over 9.5, but it looks like it went up to 11.5 now, which is odd.
What? Really?
It jumped to 10.5. Yeah.
Oh my God. Hold on. Let me see.
So I hate to give that one out and then.
Let's see. Florida State. Hang on. No, it's still 9.5 on DraftKings. That's strange.
Okay. Saracen is 11.5.
So maybe,
I like the 9.5.
So giving it out at a 9.5 now, if that's the case, real quick for bettors, like that's a huge thing. That's why, especially in this market of college baseball, it's so important to shop around because no book truly knows how to correctly handicap this, at least early in the season. Like they'll sharpen up and tighten up probably like in a couple months after they have a big enough sample size. But that's why it's important to shop around. Like if you're seeing an 11.5 at another book and you're getting a 9.5 on DraftKings, that's like tells you something. Like that means the over is a good play. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hit, but like finding value because there's a big enough disparity to say there's a 2-run difference on the same game at different books.
Yep, 100%. And we just haven't seen TCU be able to show that they can pitch long term.
Yeah.
I think Florida State's going to get their runs like we talked about earlier. The Florida talent level is always elevated from the rest of the country anyways. So, Florida State plates 4 or 5 runs. TCU plates 6 or 7. We're going to have a great game. Cash that over.
Couldn't agree more. All right, so I'm gonna ride with you too. I don't like doing this, but I'm gonna add 2 plays to the same game. TCU, little redemption time. So TCU's on my card at minus 125 at the money line. I'm also going to take their over 9.5 at minus 115. I feel like that is, we kind of talked ourselves into it. You're telling me that you're seeing it over somewhere else at 11.5. I think that's honestly that's a big number. I'm even seeing 10 on Caesars. So, it's now a no-brainer, of course. Obviously, the parlay, we're on together. Southern Miss, LSU, moneyline parlay. I got it at 105. I would still give it out at minus 115. Maryland moneyline, I'm on it plus 205. I think that's a big play. That's way too big of a price to be giving a Power 5 school, a top 15 school in the country like Maryland, a guy that hits 25 home runs, a guy in Jason Savacool is probably a top 20 pitcher in college baseball right now. I just don't see Maryland being that big of an underdog for a good reason. And then we're going to add East Carolina, assuming they play money line against UNC. That's just a straight unit, minus 110. Should be Trey Savage against Max Carlson, assuming they play. Honestly, dude, I don't really have a ton else. I try not to keep, and I guess I'll put in a half unit on Iowa at minus 135. I guess that's going to be my card for the day. Trying to keep it maybe to like 5-6 plays. I don't like putting out 10, 11. I think that's just a losing proposition.
Yeah, you could play with some money line parlays. I like Texas A&M on the money line and Florida, like we talked about earlier. I may pair those two together, but like you said, I try not to give out a whole lot of plays.
Parlays start to become like, honestly, they're fun, but then you get these like weird outcomes that could affect one game where you think one of the guys or one of the teams is supposed to do something, they don't end up doing it, and then kind of like how I had to go through with TCU, and that really starts to get me mad. But so real quick, my obviously lock of the day, the Loch Ness Monster, Johnny V's Loch Ness Monster is Southern Miss, LSU moneyline parlay plus 105. I just reiterated a minus 115 is a fair price. And I think, this is something that's the best play of the day for a reason, Matt. Like, you're getting 2 of the top 5 pitchers. They're getting butter matchups. And, more times than not, both of these teams should win. And it just speaks to the value that I have now, because now if you're trying to play that, it's minus 115, which is still a solid price.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I never use the word lock, but in honor of you saying it, I'm right there with you. Let's go.
Matt, appreciate you so much for joining me today. It was a ton of fun. We got to have you back. I had a ton of fun doing this with you, and I feel like we could be doing this a lot more throughout the season. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter at Grissom Tweets, and then mattgrissom.com. I always post my best bets, and they're pinned to my Twitter profile. So either way, you can find me there. Man, I enjoyed it. Let's win some money. You're not going to have me back on if I go over. So
no, we can't. No, listen, man.
Cash these tickets.
Hey, listen. You know what? The wins are important. At the end of the day, this is a results-driven business. So obviously the wins are important. That's what keeps the bank account live. That's what keeps people coming back. But ultimately, if you're giving out good insight, man, like the best bettors are going to be 57%, which means you're going to lose almost half of your bets. But if you're giving out good insight, which obviously you do, then more times than not you're going to be a successful bettor down the road. But really appreciate it, man, and look forward to speaking soon. Definitely be in touch throughout the day with a lot of our plays. We have a loaded card today, so best of luck. Don't forget, follow me on Twitter at _JohnnyVTV, Instagram JohnnyVTV_, and TikTok JohnnyVTV. Check out all my work at betkarma.com. Ton of content. See you next week. And don't forget to tune into Johnny VTV Live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Got another good slate for the Saturday baseball. Peace.